The Risk of Rain update got delayed by another month. A bummer for many, I presume, but my heart is not as heavy, as the delay means
one more month for Risk of Rain lore speculation! Woo!
Yes indeed! More time to speculate and debate on the lore of this game. How truly wonderful. Of course, this has led me to thinking a bit. Never a good sign. After uploading my video, some friends of mine shared my latest endeavors on the official Reddit and Discord, something which I greatly appreciated. The interesting thing is that both posts were swiftly followed by heated arguments. The one in Discord lasted for an hour or two, with accusations and insults being thrown both ways. Now that we have been given another month to speculate, let's try to make the best out of it. Be skeptical of what people tell you. That also includes me. Hold me to a high standard. Some think that they have solved the lore and understand everything, but no one except Hopo Games does. Not me, not you. Ask questions, and ask what your line of thought is. Be open for the theories of others. You might not agree with the theories provided, but you will see a different way a piece of lore can be deciphered. It seems somehow a tendency to snuff out the theories of others in belief of already well-established ones, which I think is a shame. It's far more fun when there's plenty of theories on the line, so when more lore is dropped, we can see which theories still stand on their own. A theory is like a flower, and who are we to trample these flowers before they even get a chance to bloom, just because other flowers, or theories, have bloomed? If a theory contradicts a piece of canon lore, then by all means inform them, but don't be a prick about it. What I'm trying to bring up here is that we should try to make the discussions around lore a bit more civilized. Might be a wishful request, and me just talking to a void, but I suppose asking won't hurt too much. Now I know by analytics 80% of you have probably already left, but let's get on with the topic at hand. Dim the lights, brew a mug of your favorite hot beverage, and get yourself real nice and cozy, where we're discussing the mysterious machines of Risk of Rain. Most science fiction media is set in the future, where technology has advanced in incredible ways. Everything from spacecrafts, laser weapons, and fantastical space colonies. Yet a common trope that somehow always thinks itself in science fiction are robots. Highly advanced pieces of machinery, with locomotion and sometimes even an artificial intelligence. For better or worse. Most commonly worse.
I'm afraid I can't do that.
Risk of Rain is no different, with its plethora of robots and mechanical fiends. Ranging from the simple but helpful drones that you repair across your journey, to the frankly terrifying robot janitor and D. The technological advancement of the human race in the Risk of Rain universe is very interesting, but still a bit cloudy. They have managed to create spaceships capable of faster than light travel, and incredibly complex robots like Handy or Multi, but teleportation is still considered absurd. The before mentioned robots are quite advanced, with full locomotion and incredible utility. At the same time, they still utilize ballistic ammunition, as we can see with armor penetration rounds and the ammunition belts on gunner turrets. Laser type weapons seem to be either expensive or very rare. We can see how the Hyper Threader laser weapon is of high priority shipping, and Huntress with her laser bow and Artificer with her elemental nanotechnology seem to be the exception rather than the norm. Accessible technology seems to be made to be cheap, but not reliable, as seen in the personal shield generator.
While the kinetic rating is very poor, the extremely cheap production cost of Hidden's personal barrier made a great budget tool for hikers, sailors, and even daily commuters to be comfortable in harsh weather. Many people in the office figured out they could replace their expensive winter jackets with comfortable, trendy personal barriers.
And fuel cell logs. As humanity began to venture out into the depths of space, high energy with low volume fuel sources became critical for interplanetary travel. Stability came later. I mentioned this to show how technology in this world is advanced, but expensive or even limited. Money is very important here. The element of chests being opened by money is actually canon, according to the rusted keylog.
I don't trust UCC not one bit. Their security chests, full of overrides and backdoors. I got a cousin working in their factory, and they've got all kinds of weird things going on in those chests. I've seen so many of them in auctions, for the lost and unclaimed ones, and you just pay money, and it springs open on the spot? Are you kidding me?
Technology has also seemingly been very developed with the robots. We can see the drones follow very simple functions. They shoot and hover around and seem to have the ability to recognize friend from foe. You could also put the engineer spider minds in this category. We also have the not so friendly mechanical spiders, who seem to have a bit more complicated software. Being able to hack, redirect transmission signals, collect valuable cargo, or even hijack entire ships. They even have combat abilities. Then we have the playable robots. Handy, Chef, Multi, and Rex. Robots with far more flexibility in terms of their operation. We never really see these robots in action apart from playing as them, but I think it's safe to assume that these robots would have far more complex software, being able to act more freely. They surely must all possess an AI programmed to work within set boundaries, so it doesn't hurt nearby personnel and stick to protocol. It would be beneficial for the crew of US Contact Light to have Handy on their side, if you know what I mean. There are also the Solus control units who roam around the planet searching for iron. Here is the interesting thing. Out of all these robots I mentioned, only the drones and Multi haven't acted up in a bizarre way, and one of them doesn't even have the logbook yet. There is a big chance that the robots in Risk of Rain do indeed dream of electric sheep. Let's look at it case by case. First, let's get Chef and Multi out of the way. Chef is a robot that cooks food and seemingly has malfunctioned. As you can see, the description reads that the abilities it has is meant to be used on the customers, throwing cleavers towards customers and cooking them. I highly doubt this is standard procedure. If it is, then US either hates their employees or have the judgment capabilities of a drunk teenager. I suspect that the crash made Chef break, but for all we know he could also be an assassination robot in disguise. Wouldn't that be something? Otherwise, we don't really know anything about Multi either. They have no lore entry as of now, but are mentioned in the Titanic plane's log. Here some survivors are setting up their communications center and are utilizing a multi-unit to push a big rock off the cliff. The rock reforms and smashes their communications center. This camp is labeled as Rally Point Beta. Given how Rally Point Delta is the Contact Light survivor camp, and in the Greek alphabet, Delta is the fourth letter while Beta is the second one, I would say it's safe to assume that the survivors from Rally Point Beta are also from the US Contact Light, and not US Redacted. This has the implication that there were multi-units on board the US Contact Light in Risk of Rain 1, but we never saw them. Turn on the Artifact of Vengeance while play as Multi and you'll soon face up with the Umbra of Multi, which has a subtext, the right tool for the wrong job. I like to decipher this as the multi-units being competent but ultimately used for wrongdoings, as they work for the UES company, which has a track history of transporting a lot of shady or even unethical goods. Moving on to the iconic and beloved Handy. Beloved by the Risk of Rain 1 community. The robot is as iconic as it is mysterious. At the character select, they have a very robotic description of their abilities, and their character description reads, "No manual given for Handy model." This in itself is already a bit suspicious, given the robot is of a very peculiar nature. They are labeled as the robot janitor, but they're given drones that can be launched with great force, overclock feature, and most jarring a massive hammer. I'm not going to say I'm an expert of janitors, but the ones I have seen wield brooms and not hammers the size of their body. The drones might be used to send to fetch equipment or even go to vents and other small places which are hard to reach for a handy unit. And the overclock feature might be handy for emergencies. The hammer could make sense for self-defense, but it still seems a bit odd to give what essentially is a tool of destruction, rather than, I don't know, a taser or any kind of projectile weapon. Maybe it was cheaper. I think the handy unit is more than just the robot janitor we are led to believe. It might have been made with more malicious intent, given the curious design choices. Doesn't help that the upgraded hammer ability is called unethical reassembly. Not that I disagree with that statement. Alas, there is not that much lore about Handy other than that. The only remaining thing is the ending text. And so he left, servos pulsing with new life. Well, this could just be a sign of how energized the battle left them, or maybe that the items they had utilized has infused them with a new type of energy. The far more interesting interpretation is that the battle gave Handy sentience, a new life, new energy in the most literal sense. Somehow either the planet's influence, the defeat of Providence, or both might have led to Handy to develop a sense of sentience. They can now leave the planet aware of what they are, but also aware of the slaughter they had committed. Of course, this hinges on that Handy was the one who got out of the planet, and that his ending is canon. Given the author of the logs, who killed Providence, seems to be a bit more of a human nature, I don't think that Handy killed Providence, but the planet might still have given him sentience. The survivor could have also activated Handy and brought him into the battle. We know the survivors didn't leave as a group of 10, but we didn't know if they just left completely alone. Maybe the survivor took the Handy unit with him as well. Now here is where I might have to ask you to bear with me a little. Handy is found in US Contact Light, in a cargo crate. It would make sense that when the survivor leaves the planet, Handy also comes along, right? It's very hard to tell how much of the ship actually takes off in the ending, but let's imagine that the cargo bay with Handy is also coming along. I think it's safe to say that Handy got out of the planet. What happened after War 1 is still very unclear, but what if the Handy unit, seen in the background of the Risk of Rain 2 character select, is actually the same Handy? Now hold on. I'm aware that Handy is most likely just a type of robot and hardly unique. Yes, I get that there's a big chance it's a new model and yada yada yada. At the same time, we don't have any proof either way. So let's say for the sake of speculation and also for fun, that Handy got sentience after events of Risk of Rain 1, and that the ship which escaped somehow got back to the UES company. What if the company got those last known coordinates from Handy? It might have been a radio transfer, and I am aware the gasoline log states that it would take months for the US Contact Light to reach them, but as far as I'm aware, and I spent far too much time reading these logs, there is no current piece of lore that states where US Contact Light got their coordinates from, and we don't know how much long after Risk of Rain 1, Risk of Rain 2 takes place. Seeing as the chests in Sky Meadows have rusted a lot, there might have been a couple of years in between. As for why Handy is slumped in the Risk of Rain 2 character select, maybe him being away from the planet has led the energy and the sentience he has been infused with to leave him, making him become more of a robot again. Or the US Contact Light turned him off, seeing as he was now a danger to them. This theory might be a bit out there, but I think we need more radical ones. The lore community has become too complacent. Handy is also not the only Risk of Rain 1 robot who has been affected by the planet. The mechanical spiders have been noted to work outside of their software by the Roar 1 survivor.
In general, they are quite difficult to find and eradicate on large vessels, but now that they are loose, they seem to be able to operate outside their software.
They mention it rather casually, make me worry that this is a normal occurrence. Another interesting thing to ponder on about is the statement,
Do I wonder, how long will they continue to run without access to an electrical grid?
It's a peculiar remark. What if the reason they bring it up is because the spiders don't have the need to hook up to an electrical grid anymore? The planet's influence maybe hasn't made them sentient exactly, but instead increased their capabilities so that they can better protect the planet. Pure speculation of course, but something is off with the mechanical spiders. Now let's bid adieu with Risk of Rain 1 for now, and move on to the sequel. Rex is a very noteworthy survivor in Risk of Rain 2. He is the only one with a character log. So allow me.
Also transcription from Hydroponics Bay of UEC.
Status report to Hydroponics Unit. Serial key begins with 12EA0311SD095A.
Yes, 12EA03. Tasked with care for the cabbage, lettuce, and Mizuna groves. About 250 plants total. Stable but losing biomass. I think there are issues with the microgravity.
Keep an eye on the biomass. We might have to scrap 12EA03 and replace it with one of our evergreen units. Moving on. Serial key CRP012D054JD0.
CRP01 is doing alright. Tasked with corn. About 80 plants total. Lost 6, down to 74.
Sustainable, I suppose. What about serial key REX0CH12D66M?
Oh, that unit. Yeah, it was tasked with care for one of our cabbage hybrids. To be quite frank, it turned out terrible. I think we started with 80 units, but we've lost 79. The hybrid species just isn't spliced right. I think there was no way to sustain them.
And status report on the unit?
Oh, well, it's out on the star deck. It managed to hoist the last hybrid onto its platform base, and it's been walking around the ship ever since, chasing down starlight.
What? The unit left hydroponics?
Yes, but...
So the unit is disengaging from protocol.
Well, yes,
And
but...
instead of terminating the unit, you let it roam around the ship unsupervised?
Just the team. Well, we just kind of felt bad for the thing, you know? It's trying really hard to keep that last hybrid alive and...
Go terminate the unit.
Well, the thing is, Rex is actually doing a great job. The hybrid's biomass...
Are you kidding? Terminate the unit! You have no idea what happens to a robot once it disengages from protocol. You're putting the life of your entire team in danger for the sake of a stray hydroponics unit. This shouldn't even be a discussion.
Yes, sir.
It felt good to read a log again. While I am very much an amateur at best, voice acting and rating is still very fun. Here we can see one of two mentions of the UES redacted, the other one being Tougher Times. The ship from the same company as the US Contact Light, sent to either retrieve US Contact Light cargo, rescue survivors, or set up a colony for all we know. The ambitions are very, very mysterious. The more important part is the behavior of Rex. It seems to break protocol to protect the plant it's about to lose, going outside the bay looking for specks of starlight to sustain the planet. Rex is eerily committed to protect it. The person in charge gets the order to terminate Rex, and maybe from sympathy or misunderstanding of what terminate means, the personnel dumps Rex off the ship, in which they land in the abyssal depths. Some take it as a sign that the ship was in close proximity of the planet when they dumped the robot. Keep in mind that Risk of Rain is a world of magic and many abnormal phenomenon, so this might not be the case. Rex could have arrived from the planetary wormhole for all we know. If the US redacted was above the planet when they dumped poor Rex, it may be another sign of the planet making robots act up. Think of it this way. The planet was alone and weak, and Rex cared for it. Rex cared for a planet that was essentially doomed. Doesn't that remind you of someone? Someone who sheltered the doomed? Maybe our bulwark of the weak? The influence of the planet seems to be of a more caring nature. Interesting narrative parallel with how you once again have someone who wants to protect the weak and someone who cares not for them. Food for thought, I suppose. On a little side note, we have Med-E, a medical robot on Rally Point Delta that seems to show remorse when an enforcer, not necessarily our enforcer, risks life and limb to find food for the survivors. Med-E goes from "I suggest you stay indoors and rest" to "please stay indoors and rest." You could decipher this as just a robot recognizing that the enforcer had left and that the program makes them go from suggesting to begging, but the robot showing a lick of remorse or empathy is very in character for robots in this universe. Just another example of robots being mysterious. There's also a great animation of this particular log on YouTube. I highly recommend watching it. Let's move on to the last abnormality of the mechanical kind, at least for now. The Solus control units. These big robots with an onboard AI have been sent to the Risk of Rain planet to locate iron, and won't let any fauna or flora get in their way. A classic case of how greediness and desire for resources will make some go to extreme lengths for it. However, something goes awry, and the Solus units lose connection to their mother and children units. And from the way they mention the anomalies being detected in the ocular paste, hull and gravity sheltering, leads me to believe that they were attacked by the local inhabitants. In the Ally Warship Unit log, we see what I think is a continuation of the Solus Control Unit log. Here we can see that the Ally Vultures repairing the Solus unit, and the robot itself has a change protocol, leaving the fauna be. The robot's mind is repaired, they get the iron they were looking for and even get decorated, much to the delight of the unit. At the end, even confessing the mutual love for the Vultures. We know it is the Vultures because the Ally Warship Unit only comes to attack you when you destroy Vulture eggs, and they are decorated with feathers. Also helps that it's found in the Siren's Call, the home of the Vultures. Something that's very interesting is how the log mentions that the mother units can be repaired and even piloted. In the Solus Control Unit log we see they mention children and mother units. The children units are probably the little probes, but what are the mother units then? And even bigger Solus Control Units? What if they are one of the shipwrecks that we can find in the Siren's Call? The important thing to take from the whole Solus story is that the planet and its inhabitants seems to have changed the robot for the better, making them less destructive and even caring, just how Rex got influenced to desperately care for its own plant. An interesting contrast is how vultures in the real world hover around nearly dead creatures and wait for them to die before eating them. Meanwhile, the vultures here took a broken down robot and repaired it instead. They healed a dying creature, contrary to the nature of our vultures. Just thought that was an interesting thing to ponder on about. Also, the robots are searching for iron. But in the last game, in the Prison Shackles log, it's mentioned that steel is barely worth more than dirt. Steel is iron mixed with carbon to become an alloy which is harder and stronger than steel. Yet iron is more desired? How weird. Either a Prison Shackles guy doesn't know what he is talking about, or steel someone has an ability that makes it useless in comparison to iron. The robots in Risk of Rain hold a lot of soul and mystery despite their cold metal exterior. How the planet has shaped every single robot is one of the more interesting aspects of the lore, and makes them more interesting than it would have been otherwise. Whether they are terrifying robot janitors, psychotic chefs, malicious spider bots, useful workers, adorable gardeners, or greedy probes who have learned to love, all of them hold fascinating stories and enrich the world in their own unique way. Thank you for sticking it out to the end. I enjoy taking a more speculative approach to this video. Let me know your thoughts on the subject, the lore, or anything in general. Just leave a comment. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to stay in touch. And finally, of course, thank you again for watching and have a cozy evening.
Boss, you killed a child. Amazing. Mission complete. That right there is why you're the best.